All right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called King Kong Lives 1986. This is going to be another Adrian recommendation. Giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I thought it was pretty bad. Even though we try to buck the trend of Siskel and Ebert on this channel, I found this movie quite boring. It does have its moments though. For instance, you get to see Linda Hamilton's right breast for about 1 second. And King Kong snaps some redneck dude, hillbilly, snaps him in half. That was pretty gruesome. Of course, King Kong looks like a guy in a gorilla suit, just like the first King Kong from 1976. I shouldn't say the first one, since the original with Fay Wray was in the 1930s. But anyways, King Kong Lives, released as King Kong 2 in some countries, is a 1986 U.S. monster adventure film directed by John Guillermin, produced by the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, and featuring special effects by Carlo Rambaldi. I guess I should put his name in the description. He did the special effects for Alien and the 1976 version of King Kong. Let's put his name in. Before I forget, I gotta switch the. I gotta put his name in the Alien description. Special effects by Carlo Rambaldi? Is that how you say it? Carlo Rambaldi. There we go. I think I spelled that right. Rambaldi. Okay. Boom. Fix that problem. The film stars Linda Hamilton and Brian Kerwin. I'm not familiar with Brian Kerwin stuff. The film is a sequel to King Kong, 1976, set 10 years later. This was the final King Kong film in which the title character was portrayed using suits and practical effects. Yeah, so once again, as in the 1976 version, it's a man in a monkey suit. Further films would utilize computer animation. It is the 6th entry in the King Kong franchise. After being shot down from World Trade Center at the end of the last movie, Kong is revealed to have been revived from his death and has been kept in a coma for the next 10 years at the Atlantic Institute under the care of surgeon Dr. Amy Franklin. I used to have a crush on Linda Hamilton when I saw The Terminator. I never saw this film. I never watched Beauty and the Beast until I got Netflix years later. And the original movie with Jessica Lange, I saw on the big screen back in 1976 when I was 6 years old. In order to save Kong's life, Dr. Franklin must perform a heart transplant and give Kong a computer monitored artificial heart. However, he has lost so much blood that a transfusion is badly needed. And to complicate matters, Franklin says there is no species of ape or another animal whose blood type matches Kong's. This leads to adventurer Hank Mitchell, who travels to Borneo as he theorizes that Borneo and the island from the first film were once part of the same landmass. And he captures a giant female ape who's dubbed Lady Kong. Lady Kong falls in love with them. This movie is so corny. It's dumb. Okay, let's see what the movie poster says. America's biggest hero is back, and he's not happy. That's a cool looking movie poster. It looks better than the movie itself. All right. The transfusion and the heart transplant are a success. Linda Hamilton's got this giant saw squirting blood all over her. But Kong escapes along with Lady Kong, Lieutenant Colonel Archie Nevitt, played by John David Ashton. Is called in, and his men, and is called in with his men to hunt down and kill the two apes. Lady Kong is captured alive by Nevitt's troops and imprisoned in some kind of grain silo. Kong falls from a cliff and is presumed dead. However, as Franklin and Mitchell soon discover, Kong's artificial heart is beginning to give out, forcing them to attempt a jailbreak. They discover that Lady Kong is pregnant with Kong's offspring. The jailbreak is successful thanks to Kong, who has survived the fall, and Kong breaks his mate out. After being followed, attacked, and shot by the military, Kong kills Nevitt, and he dies slowly near a military base on a farm where Lady Kong gives birth to an infant son of Kong. De Laurentiis had been interested in making a sequel to King Kong since he made the remake. Another movie with a guy in a monkey suit in 1977. He said there would definitely be a sequel. Steve McQueen made a picture in which he died at the end, but they made another picture with Steve McQueen. Many stars die at the end of a picture and then go on to the next picture. Kong is a star. We are going to have a new story, a new Kong. The progress of a sequel was complicated by the fact that the 1976 film was considered a financial disappointment, and there were ongoing legal uncertainties over who owned the rights to King Kong. A number of scripts had been written. They had King Kong in Russia and King Kong in outer space, says writer Steve Pressfield. I would have liked to have seen King Kong in outer space. Really, this is not an exaggeration. They even had one with little kids leading him around, saying things like, "Careful, Kong, don't step on that car." It was really an embarrassment. Pressfield and Ron Shusett pitched the idea that Kong had been on a giant respirator for years, and he was brought back to life with an artificial heart. According to Pressfield, Dino loved the whole idea of the artificial heart and said, "That's brilliant. I've been wondering for 5 years how to bring him back to life in a way that people would accept. Sure, it's campy, but it's outrageous enough that it really works." John Guillermin had been hoping to direct a version of Taipan with Sean Connery, but when the project was unable to be financed, he moved on to King Kong Lives. That's another movie I want to see, Taipan. The writers met with Guillermin and together devised a story about Kong getting an infusion from a female ape. When we came up with the idea, Dino was very skeptical and he didn't want to do it, said Pressfield. It's hard enough to accept that there's a King Kong, but since he has been around for 50 years, he has become a pop cult hero. No one is going to believe a female ape, I said. Dino, he had to have a mother. And he said, by God, you're right. I never thought of that. There can be a female. And we went with it. The film was announced in October 1985. It was part of a slate of films from De Laurentiis in association with Embassy that also included Blue Velvet. Pressfield said the whole thing is a love story with the two apes, but there's also a lot of action and an uplifting ending, although there are some elements of tragedy as there were in the original. We even gave a nod to women's lib with Lady Kong falling for the male scientist. Boo. Of course, this is before she meets the king. So Lady Kong has the hots for Linda Hamilton's boyfriend? Okay. No wonder people fell asleep. I had to keep rewinding this thing. And I thought I had a rental for 4 weeks. But YouTube plays a trick on you when you rent movies. At first it says 4 weeks, and then it switches back to 2 days, and then you have to rent it again. So I wasted $4 on this stupid movie thanks to Adrian. Guillermin said later that making a sequel to King Kong was a bad idea. Dino was striking out on all sorts of things at the time. It's really too bad that he suffered a run of flops. He was involved with some interesting projects. Brian Kerwin said, I knew that my name would be up there as the lead, but there was never any question that the star of the movie was the ape, the guy in the monkey suit. Also, the 1976 movie had such low prestige, and Jessica Lange was ridiculed, but then so was Christopher Reeve for Superman. And look at the subsequent success of those two. So I don't worry about it. We tried to have fun when we were making the movie without poking fun at it. It's an adult fairy tale and it has humor. People think it's a silly piece of fluff and we're all jerks. Then that's the way it goes. I hope it doesn't happen. The film's leading star, Linda Hamilton, said, I'm happy that I don't have to get picked up by the monkey and become the object of his desire. I save Kong, and it's nice to play someone who is not hysterical and dramatic and intense all the time. Filmed in April 1986 in Tennessee, the movie is about Kong, about special effects, about Jeeps being blown up, says John Ashton. King Kong Lives was released on VHS and Laserdisc in 1987 by Lorimar Home Video, on DVD in 2004 by 20th Century Fox, and on Blu-ray in 2023 by Umbrella Entertainment. Despite its marketing campaign, King Kong Lives was a box office flop in the United States and Canada, grossing $4,711,220 during its theatrical run. Distributed by De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, which is sort of like Canon Group, I guess. Release date, December 19th, 1986. Runtime, 105 minutes too long. Budget, $18 million. Box office, $48.9 million estimate. I guess that's including the USSR. According to one account, besides the fact that audiences had noses for a stinker, King Kong Lives lacked an effective advertising campaign that sold its premise. Kong finds a mate. And the movie was sold as if it was just another B movie retread, which it was, but on an A budget. Overseas, the film was a success in the Soviet Union, where it sold 53.6 million tickets in 1988, becoming the top grossing foreign film of the year and one of the top 15 highest grossing foreign films of all time. At an average 1980s Soviet ticket price of 50 kopecks, the film's ticket sales are equivalent to an estimated gross revenue of approximately 26.8 million rubles, or $44.2 million. The film sold a total of 54,831,200 tickets worldwide, including 1,231,200 tickets in North America. The film grossed an estimated total revenue of approximately $48,911,220 worldwide. The financial failure of the movie, while it earned 3.7 times its budget, it ultimately lost money due to its marketing costs. Although with movies such as Taipan led to the bankruptcy of De Laurentiis Company. I'm going to see if I can add Taipan to my list. King Kong Lives was panned by critics. Rotten Tomatoes reports an 8% approval rating based on 13 reviews with an average rating of 2.6 out of 10. I'm rating it higher. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 32 out of 100 based on 9 critic reviews, including generally unfavorable reviews. I'm still rating it higher than Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. I'm giving it a 40 out of 100. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of a D+ on an A+ to F scale, which is about the same rating that I'm giving it. My rating most closely matches CinemaScore, not Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert gave the film only 1 out of 4 stars and stated, "The problem with everyone in King Kong Lives is that they're in a boring movie and they know they're in a boring movie and they just can't stir themselves to make an effort." DEG sent a notice to Ebert and Gene Siskel notifying the 2 critics that they were allowed to show snippets of the film on TV in their native Chicago, but were forbidden to show the same snippets on the national scale unless they promised to give positive reviews, which the pair refused to agree to. Siskel remarked, "Obviously, they were scared. If you don't believe the film company, that, think about it, couldn't find a single scene that it wanted you to see." In fact, Ebert playfully noted that the children in the audience were so bored with the film, they found playing with one of the auditorium's doors a more diverting activity. Patrick Goldstein of the Los Angeles Times opined that this sequel, directed by John Guillermin, who was also at the helm of the 1976 version. Oh, I better put his name in the description too. I'm blowing it. Let's do directed. So I do know the director because he directed the original. Where was I? Oh, John Guillermin, the director. How could I forget him? I'm losing it, man. It's a good thing I go over the Wikipedia page. My son was very critical of my movie reviews. He says I just go over the Wikipedia page and the IMDb page. It's a good thing, too, because it helps me figure out who goes where and what goes in the description box and the tags. Patrick Goldstein of the Los Angeles Times opined that this sequel, directed by John Guillermin, who was also at the helm of the 1976 version, is in good hands as long as Kong is on the screen. Designer Carlo Rambaldi has done a masterful job of sculpting his mighty ape's features, giving him heft, surprising agility, and perhaps to age him a bit, a receding hairline. But the filmmakers haven't been able to improve on the original story. It's still Kong versus civilization with a lot of high firepower action and wackily implausible plot twists thrown in to keep the big guy busy. Rambaldi's work was also lauded by Janet Maslin of the New York Times, but she nonetheless remarked that King Kong Lives, which was directed by John Guillermin, has a dull cast and a plot that's even duller. I'll tend to agree with that. Staff members of Variety remarked that in portraying an Indiana Jones type figure, Brian Kerwin strains for plausibility, and the film swiftly begins to lose some early credibility. Yeah, we don't like Brian Kerwin in this one. He gets a Razzie Award. The film was nominated for one Razzie Award, Worst Visual Effects. Actor Peter Getz received an original check of 3 cents from the film and decided to frame it as a tribute, never cashing it. The film is listed in Golden Raspberry Award founder John Wilson's book, The Official Razzie Movie Guide, as one of the 100 most enjoyably bad movies ever made. I did not enjoy this movie. Maybe Adrian did. Film Link called the movie awful. There's no sense of adventure or danger. The bulk of the film takes place in the USA, and the rampage of Kong is played for laughs, being whacked on the head by golf ball, etc. The leads, Linda Hamilton and Brian Kerwin, could have been cut out of the film entirely. Who wants to see a King Kong movie where the apes are in love with each other and not a human? 2 official video games based on the film were developed and released only in Japan by Konami. They were titled King Kong 2, Ikari no Megaton Punch for the Famicom, and King Kong 2, Yogamaro Densetsu, pardon my Japanese, for the MSX. The Famicom game totally discarded the human aspect of the story, and players played as King Kong, who has to travel around the globe fighting giant robots. and certain military forces in order to save the female Kong. The game was designed as an action-adventure game with some science fiction concepts. The MSX version, on the other hand, plays from the perspective of Mitchell. This version is a role-playing game. All right, so we got the Dungeons and Dragons version of King Kong 2. And let's go to the IMDb website now. We'll do a quick scan, go over some of the highlights. King Kong Lives, 1986, PG-13, 1 hour 45 minutes. Gets a very low 3.9 out of 10 on IMDb, which is closer to my rating, actually. 7,000 votes. So it is a well-known movie, but very early rated. Kong falls from the Twin Towers, and he appears to be alive, but his heart is failing. So it's replaced with an artificial one. All is well until he senses that there's a female Kong somewhere out there, and he escapes wreaking havoc. All right, more like this. King Kong. I guess they're talking about the original and the Peter Jackson version. King Kong versus Godzilla and King Kong versus Godzilla. There are two versions of King Kong and King Kong versus Godzilla. Probably the old version and the new version of each. Peter Michael Getz' check for the post-release royalties came to 3 cents. He has it stapled to the film's poster in his house, having never cashed it. When the rednecks pour beer into Kong's mouth, he only has a sip, but when he spits the beer back out, it's way more than he actually has in his mouth. Quotes. This is between Amy Franklin and Hank Mitchell. Boyfriend and girlfriend. Amy Franklin feels sorry for Hank, who is miserably huddled and shivered with just a blanket wrapped around him while she is nested comfortably and warmly inside her snug sleeping bag. And so she turns over with a slightly resigned air, unzips the side of the sleeping bag, casts open the entire length of the upper half, and smiles at Hank invitingly. Man, I would like to be in this scene. This is the infamous right breast nude scene where Adrian was hitting the pause button. Hank Mitchell, in a tone of slightly surprised hesitation, are you sure about this? Amy Franklin, in a casual, friendly tone, referring to Kong's having prepared a comfy spot on the nearby grassy plateau for Lady Kong and him to sleep. Yeah, why not? We're primates too, Linda Hamilton says, as they get naked in the sleeping bag. This was edited from King Kong, 1976. Some of it was edited. I think the first part of the film, maybe. All right, King Kong Lives, 1986. This is a review from Michael Elliott on IMDb, dated June 24th, 2008. Bad but fun. King Kong Lives, 1986. Mr. Elliot gives it half a star out of 4, which would be 2 out of 8. I'm rating a little bit higher than this guy. Sequel to the 1976 remake has Kong in a coma after falling from the World Trade Center. His heart is quickly going back, so he needs a mechanical heart installed. Before the doctor, Linda Hamilton, does this, Kong is going to need blood. So thankfully, there's a redneck hunter, played by Peter Elliott, who has captured a female Kong. This movie has the reputation of being one of the worst ever made. And people must have believed it because they stayed away from the film when it was originally released, and it turned into one of the biggest box office disasters in history. There was a favorite of mine when I was a kid, but it hasn't. Oh, this was a favorite of mine when I was a kid, but it hasn't aged too well. The biggest problem with the film is the film itself, because it never quite clear what the movie is trying to do. The story is all over the place. Characters are coming in left and right, and the entire army setup just doesn't make too much sense at all. I'm going to take a wild guess and say this movie was meant for romance, because we've got Hamilton and Elliot falling for each other, and we've got the two Kongs falling in love. There's no doubt that this is a very stupid movie, but thankfully it's dumb enough to be mildly entertaining. The scenes with the two Kongs falling in love are pretty funny, as is a scene later in the film where redneck hunters trap Kong and try to torture him. I think the redneck hunters scene at the Linda Hamilton come to my sleeping bag scene, fantasy scene, were the highlights of the film, actually. The ending is just as wild as anything that follows it, and I must admit that I found it pretty cute and touching. I did not. I thought it was corny and dumb. The special effects are certainly several notches below the previous film, but they aren't too bad. Elliot and Hamilton really, it's a man in a monkey suit. Come on. Elliot and Hamilton really don't have too much to do because the screenplay doesn't offer them much, but both are fine in the roles. I didn't like Elliot. I did not like that guy. The Indiana Jones wannabe dude. What really kills the film from being a true cult item is the fact that we've got a 75-minute story expanded to 105 minutes, which is way too long. Amen, brother. A lot of good points in this review from Michael Elliott. All right. So that's my review. Nobody in the chat room. I've only been doing one review a week because I've been busy with church stuff. They made me vice president of Legion of Mary. But I should have some more time this weekend, hopefully Friday night and Saturday, to catch them on my list. Let's go down my list now. If I can pull it up. Oh, here we go. First on my list is Drum, 1976, then Extreme Justice, 1993, and then Hillbillies in the Haunted House, 1967. So I will try my best to boogie down this list. Sorry that I've only been able to do 3 movie reviews in the past 3 weeks. It's pathetic. I'm going to try to pick up the pace in coming weeks later.